the play caller, he's a tactician as well.
Yeah, especially out of the game. A lot of thought process goes into that one. So congratulations to the winners of the Logitech Gaming Mice. Those were some fantastic tweets.
Those were definitely some great tweets, but we still want more. Keep sending your answers our way all day. We're at LOL Esports, so make sure to use the hashtag LCS.
All right, and once you are done tweeting, take a moment to give us some feedback and help us make the LCS bit better. Go to bit.ly/LCS Gamescom and tell us what part of the World Championship you are most excited to see. All right, guys, we are just moments away from that first European LCS regional playoff here at Gamescom. So let's check out the pristine brackets one more time before we start mucking them all up once again.
All right, up first is the quarterfinal match between the number 3 seed Evil Genius and the 6th place squad Team Alternate. And in our second LCS quarterfinal showdown for today, it'll be the 4 seed Gambit Gaming taking on the 5th seed Ninjas in Pajamas.
And the winners of today's best of 3 series will move on to Saturday's semi-final round, where they'll face off against the top seeded Lemon Dogs and the 2nd seed Fnatic, while the losers get dropped down to the relegation match.
And once again, and something new for the LCS split, the loser of that relegation match will join SK Gaming and Meet Your Makers in the spring promotion tournament, where they'll have to take on Europe's top challenger teams in order to earn a spot for Season 4 of the LCS.
Yeah, and for Alternate, they've already had a close call with relegation. After going 0-5 during Super Week, they became the Ninjas in Pajamas' biggest fans after Bjergsen and crew pulled off an unlikely comeback.
Pretty much we went 0-5 in the Super Week.
We didn't win the game the whole weekend.
And it was like lose after lose after lose.
No, we never gone 0-5 before, like we went 5-0 in the first week and now we go 0-5 in the last week.
And that could mean, unfortunately, no playoffs for Alternate.
I was like, holy, we will maybe play for the tie break against Escape.
When we watched the game NIP versus SK, we kind of get pumped up because the match was so close and so exciting.
Well, the game against NIP, the game was practically over. Like, you could say that the game was ours. And at some point I thought like, well, the game is lost, like, SK won. It's impossible that they lose this game.
First, we were rooting for NIP.
I never rooted for a team as much as this before.
Yeah, I was the biggest NIP fan ever, just for that game.
And in the end, we will constantly scream Bjergsen and go into work.
Carry Alternate as well, please.
Ninjas in Pajamas have done enough to take the game here.
We will have to give Bjergsen a huge hug.
We are gonna thank him later for that.
You're welcome. After NIP won, everyone was so pumped up because we knew that now is our last chance.
We felt really bad. The mood afterwards was horrible. And the mood we engaged the Alternate match afterwards with was the worst you could ever see. Before the game, Ocelot came to me and said, good luck, the best team will win. And he was trying to smile. I kinda feel that he wasn't really like confident.
It's now or never. Now it's do or die, because this match, best of 1, go to Gamescom or go to relegation at the end of the year.
We start the game and Candy Panda got the first blood on bottom. The first thing happened on my head was, okay, we lost.
After I died on first blood, I was completely destroyed.
But the only thing it came out of my mouth was like, Kritan, don't worry, it's fine, we'll win the game.
Never surrender.
And we did that, like I counter-gank bottom, I get like 2 kills bottom, then we kill mid lane, then we kill bottom, then we got Drake, and we start like snowballing from there.
And that surely is all she wrote for SK Gaming. Alternate are going to be through to Gamescom, they're through to the playoffs.
We didn't deliver, so we just see how the playoff chances slip through our fingers. They are close friends of me. I've been on that team before, and I know how is his brain, I know how is his hurt, and I know how destroyed it can be after this game.
For every LCS team, Gamescom is like a dream.
What a phenomenal video, hearing from the players, and you know, the emotions and the reactions over a Super Week, especially for a team like Alternate, who were number 1 for 6 weeks out of the 9, and then go 0-5 in Super Week and almost get relegated.
Bjergsen, the biggest carry for Alternate there. He was the only one with not that much emotion. You're welcome.
Yeah, that is just Bjergsen. He's like that all the time. All right, guys, we do need to take a very short break, but when we return, Froggen and the Evil Geniuses try to jump all over Alternate and hop into Saturday's semi-finals. We're just 3.5 minutes from the European LCS Summer Playoffs, live from Gamescom Cologne, Germany. Stick around.
Coming to Gamescom is going to be amazing.
My goal before the Super Week was just get to Gamescom.
It's just exciting. I love this.
I went to Gamescom last year. It was probably one of my favorite events I've ever been to.
The audience was great last time. I expect it to be even crazier this time.
I haven't played in front of a big crowd before, so it's gonna be exciting.
I am a bit nervous, but I usually tend to focus more when I'm nervous.
I don't think I've tried anything as big as Gamescom.
I think the most exciting thing is actually the fans. Last year we were at Gamescom and there's so many fans, they're super awesome.
If you don't enjoy playing in front of the crowds, you're doing the wrong thing.
You just feel the crowd, feel the pressure, and it helps you.
It's the motivation you need during these tough games.
It's just awesome to watch that many people.
The more fans who want to come watch, the more awesome the event will be.
For me, on the big stage, it makes me a lot more confident.
I feel like I actually get really pumped up by the crowd. It's just awesome.
It's a massive stage. I can't wait to go again.
Welcome back to Gamescom 2013, live from Cologne, Germany. I'm Joe Miller, and next to me in the broadcast booth is none other than Joshua Jack Leisman. Great to be here. And now it's time for our first game of the European LCS Regional Playoffs, with Evil Geniuses taking on Alternate. Now, the winner moves up to play Fnatic in Saturday's quarterfinal round, and the loser drops down into the relegation game.
Yeah, and obviously because of that, there's a lot of pressure on both of these teams coming into the match. A win means they have a 75% chance, if everything was a 50-50, of making it to the World Championships, because the winner of this game has to lose 2 best-of-3s in a row to not go to Worlds. So there's a little bit on the line.
Just a little bit. And even though Alternate comes into this game with a 3-1 record against Evil Geniuses, they've got to be feeling the pressure after, Froggen and crew took them down in the last week, in Super Week.
Yeah, EG looked great that week, and Yellow Pete and EG took their first game of the season against Alternate there. It was part of EG's late season upswing, right? They went 4-1 in Super Week, and also 2-1 in the tiebreakers that ended up landing them in 3rd place from a couple weeks back. Didn't even know if they were making playoffs.
No, and that was the dangerous part for them, but they managed to pick it up, and one of the reasons for the Evil Geniuses Super Week of the summer, the final push, I guess we can say, was Froggen. He had one of his best weeks ever when EG needed him the most.
Yeah, he played Fizz against EG and then also ended up the week with 22 kills. He has really stepped up of late, but also Snoopy started to settle back into the jungle. He had 47 assists in their 5 Super Week matches, so that pressure that we were talking about when they added the second jungler to the team, had a few ins and outs of the starting lineup, it does seem like they're settled on Snoopy now.
And while EG's players have started to really up their game, I think we can say, another reason for that recent success has been to a real change in team strategy.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the summer, they were known for just the farm team. They would farm, stall in lane, come back late game, and then just win. And they do it against almost every team, and it was successful. But once things started shaking up in Season 3, things weren't working well for them. Then when they added Shacker, and I think more importantly also, N-rated to their team to have another tactical mind in there, it put some fire under the team, even though their play style hasn't changed all that much, if a little more aggressive. But then another thing that I think really contributed to their success here is the 310 patch. Even though it's not all the way back, it helps their old style because the laning phase is longer, and that's typically where they've excelled.
So while Evil Geniuses had that brilliant final week of the summer, Alternate had a very different time. They limped over the finish line with a 0 for 5 in Super Week itself.
Yeah, and they were not in a good place going into that playoff game, but they were able to save it with that win in the 6th place tiebreaker against Ocelot and SKM Gaming. But that was the only win they had all week. Their fall from 1st to 6th has a bit to do with hard luck, and surprisingly, they've been a team plagued by injuries because Kryton broke his hand for a couple weeks. Also, Pharrell Lord was gone for a week. So it's been they've fallen out of sync at the wrong time.
So now with Alternate finally looking healthy again, both in-game and out of game with that hand, it's time to build on that 1-3 record here against EG and try and move on to Saturday's semi-final round. However, the Evil Geniuses are feeling good about their chances to win versus a struggling Alternate team.
I think Alternate, recently has not been the team that really was very successful at the start of the season.
We went 0-5 in the Super Week. We were disappointed to lose pretty much every game. Every single game was a disappointment from us.
If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, do you want to play against Alternate? I'd have been hesitant. Now I'm certain we can beat them.
So I think we have like really high chances.
And I feel like coming into the Alternate game, we have quite a good advantage, even though we're behind in the 1-3. But I feel like we have a good chance in the game.
To beat EG, I think we have to focus on Froggen.
I think right now they're thinking a bit like us. At least we managed to get to playoffs. Let's just take whatever we can. But they can definitely go in with a clean mindset, and that will be a huge factor.
We're still like one of the strongest teams in Europe, and we're gonna show that.
So we can gather from that everyone is feeling confident.
Yeah.
I don't think
Of course
anyone
they're all
said
confident.
this is going to be really tough. They were like, we can beat them.
Yeah, you know, I think we're going to lose to that team in the playoffs. That's just mine. No,
Said
that's not
no
what
one
I'm
ever.
gonna say. Yeah.
Said no one ever. And now that we heard from the teams, let's get into the action and check out today's starting lineups. On the blue side, we will have Evil Geniuses with Wicked in the top lane, Snoopy in the jungle, Froggen in the mid lane, and the duo of Yellow Pete and Krepo.
And on the red side, it is the top lane of Kerp with that trackball. RNA in the jungle. They're swaying to some music. Pharrell Lord back in the mid lane. Creaton, no cast on his arm. Maybe a little bit of fear there. And J-Ree on support.
So our featured matchup for this one is the mid lane. It's no real surprise from this one. Evil Geniuses Froggen versus Alternates Pharrell Lord.
Yeah, obviously Pharrell Lord has the Elo blade, and he was known for his incredibly high Elo before he was a pro. And the expectations, he's been a little hit or miss on this one.
Yeah.
One thing he's hit on against is EG though, because out of all the teams he's played, he has his best stats against them. And because of that, Froggen has some of his worst stats against Alternate. So the fight for these two is going to be really, really crazy. It's going to start at the picks and bans, honestly, because I was looking at these two guys, and Froggen has played 16 different champions, this split alone. Pharrell Lord's at 15. They just counterpick each other all day long.
And that's the thing, you can never count out the depth of these two guys' champion pool. Like, we've got 3 bans apiece. We can aim some at Froggen, some at Pharrell Lord, but honestly, and they've shown that with those statistics that you just mentioned, that they can say, okay, don't get to play my Ahri today, don't get to play my Orianna today, don't get to play my Jace today, but I'll pick from the other 10 that I've got available.
It's the craziest thing, because we always talk about how Europe in general has the best mid laners in the world. Because think about it, Pharrell Lord was the 3000 Elo guy in Season 2, but he wasn't even on a pro team because he wasn't necessarily on that level yet, as crazy as it is to say. And now he's obviously here playing for a playoff spot.
So let's get into the bans and picks and coming really quickly here, and as you'd probably expect, these two teams got a big plan for each other. Ezreal, Lee Sin, Orianna banned out for Evil Geniuses, Kassadin, Zac, Shen for Alternate.
Well, I was gonna try to make a few predictions.
Too late.
Should have said those a little bit earlier. The one thing that is surprising me a little bit is the first pick of Ahri. Now, that is Froggen's most played champion throughout the split. He's also 4-1 on it. But that really opens the door for Pharrell Lord to pick Fizz whenever, because that's people's favorite pick against Ahri. He's just picking it because he's so attracted to it, does not think there's a counter in Fizz for that.
So on the other side, Sona locked in here for J-Ree, along with the Aatrox. Obviously been really popular here in Europe, and it looks like Alternate going to go that way here as well.
Yeah, this is a little bit strange for RNA, because obviously the Lee Sin was banned away from him. That's his favorite thing, and he hadn't found success with Vi either. And that Aatrox pick, assuming RNA is good on it, has 2 purposes, because it denies Wicked that pick, and he's actually Wicked is undefeated with Aatrox in 3 games. So I think that's a smart thing for RNA. Don't know how it fits into the team comp yet, though.
So on the other side here, Nasus locked in for Snoopy, played it in Super Week against Alternate here. And also that Caitlyn, which is where Yellow Pete went absolutely godlike. 9-0-4 he finished the last game against Alternate.
And I love throwing in stats at the end here, because it's the end of the season and we can look back. Both Caitlyn and Nasus are Snoopy and Yellow Pete's most played and highest win rate for things that they've played a lot, champions. So those are just all 3 of those picks that EG has done so far. Froggen's most won champion on, Snoopy's most won champion, Pete's most won champion. So they're just going with what's worked throughout the season. It's nothing to target Alternate yet, it's really just for them.
Comfortable and successful, just what they're aiming for. Other side though, Diana being locked in here, and it looks like Misfortune as well for Creaton.
Yeah, so these ones on the other side, since we've been doing nothing but talking about EG, although Thresh is Krepo's most and Malphite is Wicked's most, which would be pretty nice. Had to touch that in, but we'll talk about the other picks first. The Diana and Misfortune, I'm very surprised by the Misfortune pick, because I'd expect Creaton to go on something much more mobile. Obviously they did ban Ezreal, which is his favorite thing, but I would still have expected him to go with something more heavy carry like a Twitch, which he's played a bunch, or Vayne, but going with the Misfortune means the Malphite pick's just all the more effective against him.
Yeah, indeed, and that Malphite and Thresh were locked in there at the end, so as you said, it's just very comfortable it seems here for EG. I think if the plan was to pick Conflict Champions, they've got exactly everything that they wanted.
That has to be the plan. The only person, by the way, who's not on their like most played champion for the split is Wicked because it got banned away. Everything else is 100% scoutable for them, and that's always been EG's style.
Yeah.
When they've been good, they play their game and they force the other team to try to do something against them.
So final pick coming in here for Alternate was actually Vladimir. So going to be getting in there, trying to avoid pretty much everything with that pull during the fights, and we'll see how that works out here for Kurt.
Yeah, so now that we can see Alternate's composition, they really want this kind of wombo in team fights. They want to land everything together, and it's all going to hinge, I feel like, on Ferelden because he has the most reliable of the initiations. Basically, just click on target, then uses E. After that, everyone else has to pile on. But that is a very, I'd almost say outdated strategy in a sense, because teams are so good at spreading out and jumping around nowadays that it takes a miracle to make everything line up.
Well, a miracle is maybe what both these teams are hoping for here today, but you've seen already that they can beat each other. Alternate particularly, we said it earlier, head-to-head stats, 3-for-1, which sets them in great stead, but you can never really call it. We've come to the playoffs. We've had a bit of time now where these teams have obviously been able to train, to scout for very certain matchups. You know, Super Week, you've got to prepare for 5 games, for 5 different teams coming into the playoffs here, and specifically for today, they've got 1 match, 1 best-of-3, and they can do all the work focused on Alternate or EG.
And so much of it will also have to do with how these teams deal under intense pressure. They've obviously both had pretty intense games because they were in tiebreaker scenarios. I'd actually say the last game Alternate played was one or done. You're either in a playoffs with a chance of world or immediately dropped into the promotion tournament. That's a huge stakes. But going into the week, and just based off past experience, EG is the team that shows up in big events. They're the team that plays well when the pressure's on the line. And they're the higher seed in this one as well.
So here we go then, in-game with Evil Geniuses versus Alternate. Don't forget, it's a best-of-3 game, so either team needing 2 games to pick up the victory here. Now, let's have a little bit of a talk about level 1, and that Thresh Hook in particular here is going to be scary.
Not only do they have Thresh Hook, if that lands, Froggen could very quickly skill up his charm and then go for there, whereas Alternate, all they have is RNA is Q if he skilled it, and that's a very unreliable, hard to follow up initiate. So if EG wants to do the 5-man roam, they're gonna get the wards in the spots they want, but because of that early ward we just saw them walk by Alternate, this is the hyper common, let's just go ward the other guy's red buff, start by both teams.
And with so much on the line here, always hard to call if risky plays are gonna come in, especially I think in game number 1, because that's where you can really gain that advantage and that safety buffer almost of having the following 2 games after that then to pick up the victory. So we'll see if we see any of that early action. EG did go right onto the top side of Alternate's red buff here, but every single one of them gonna recall.
Yeah, the only benefit that EG has right now is they recalled out, whereas Alternate ran out, and Alternate got spotted by the ward. So Alternate is actually still completely unknowledgeable about where EG is, whereas EG at least saw some of the movements of Alternate, like Ferelden Lord thinking of a late invade or steal with RNA. EG could actually counterplay this if they want to.
Well, let's see. It seems like we are going to be having lane switches. Vladimir recalled from top to come bottom, so those 2v1's going to come into effect. But that means there are more people on the bottom side of the map here as Alternate try and take away this blue buff. They've got complete vision, and there is a flash. There is a hook as well onto Aranea. Is he going to be able to escape? This one flashes over into Dragon. EG almost taking him down, burning his flash, but securing that red buff, maybe even more important.
Yeah, that's going to slow down Aranea a little bit, and also really diminishes his early game threat on Aatrox, who generally wants to make an impact following up ganks.
Saw that getting help from Kerp, who, as we said, going to come down to this bottom lane. So it will be those 2v1s that I mentioned. The Sona Misfortune against Malphite in the top, the Caitlyn Thresh versus Vladimir in the bottom. Who's going to have the better time of this from those poor, lonely solo laners?
Yeah, this one's going to be pretty tricky to call. I know that Wicked has a hatred for 1v2 lanes, to put it lightly.
Also a lot of experience.
But also a lot of experience doing so, because teams know that and just go and exploit that form. He's the one who's really very prepared for this, though. He's went Crystalline Flask, actually went Utility Spec. He's actually very likely to have the teleport cooldown reduction in that Mastery Tree as well. So if he gets over-harassed, he can always just kind of come back to the lane. I'm going to be very curious to see how the 2s in these 2v1s approach it, because they have all the say in these lanes, whether they try to deny farm, kill, or do the turret, because they have 3 options.
Well, here we see Froggen actually moving up to the top side of Alternate's jungle there. That ward obviously was down from the very get-go here from Alternate. So they saw Froggen moving out there. He backed away though, just as RNA had finished off that red buff on his top side. Wicked is already building up some farm here. Lucky for him, that wave getting pushed right underneath his turret.
Yeah, and I actually really like what Snoopy has been doing thus far. He's only just mirrored RNA. He's not trying to just run into lanes and pull off any ganks, as you would, and as Nasus, he's going to help out Wicked. This is kind of what EG wants to do. They need to make sure their guys can farm up into the late game, and he needs to protect his solo lanes. That's all Snoopy's ever really done. He's not one of those guys who goes and gets a bunch of early kills for you. He's more about the guy who's just going to help you out, farm up, and control the pace of the game.
So, quiet start to this one. Everyone going about their business, the junglers in particular. We are going to see Snoopy, of course, covering that top lane here. Doesn't want to get Wicked going too low or having any danger of that third man, the jungler, coming in to collapse onto this 2 versus 1 lane, which is something that we saw a lot of a couple of months ago. That's kind of slowed down a bit more now, this whole 3-man onto the tower.
Substantially, especially with the early buff fights that we saw. The junglers got set back a little bit, and there seemed to just be given time for Froggen and Pharrellmore to fight it out a little bit.
So let's have a look at the early CS, and remarkably close. The AD carries doing an equally great job here. Both tied on that front. Ari going to be catching up here on towards Diana on the farm front, as well as we are going to see a hook landing here on towards Kurt, but with that pull, he's able to just get out of safety. That doesn't mean, completely avoiding the hook in the first place or just afterwards. He's relatively safe there.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons RNA is coming down to at least kind of look at him. And since there's 2 babysitting junglers, especially with a Vladimir early and a Malphite early, those 2v2s aren't good at ganking, and Kurt got himself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, positional-wise, not the best for him there, and actually having to pop his Ghost to run away from that one. He has run Ghost Flash on this one, so very utility-based and something that he might need, as we've just seen.
Yeah, and that's the very common Vladimir summoner spells for the split push Vladimir. They're very clearly trying to, I feel like they're trying to distract Froggen with that pick. They want to remove Froggen from the core team. Later in the game, once Kerp gets really farmed up, Wicked's not necessarily the person who can match up against a Vladimir if Kerp gets a lot of farm. So that's why he chose those, and I want to see how that develops as the game moves later.
So Snoopy just came around to middle there to help Froggen, who, after Diana went back, has picked up a lot more farm and is now over 10 CS in the lead. He's double Doran's Ring compared to the Doran's Ring and the Crystalline Flask of Pharrellmore. He obviously did go back home there. Snoopy spotted by a ward, literally just as he comes in. Sona putting the one down right on top of him.
Yeah, Jerry actually may have saved themselves a bit of a dive there, because Froggen was going to be on his way up as well. But that was just a natural thing to actually make sure Wicked could keep farming, because one of the dangerous things that happens in these 1v2 lanes is, you see how like Krepo and Pete in this instance are up really far in the lane. If the lane ever starts pushing back, if you don't send a helper down there, he gets completely denied, and the other team would freeze the lane outside of the turret. Whereas what EG was able to do there, since they sent Snoopy up and Bluff sending Froggen up, is they allowed Wicked to get the lane to the turret, so he could safely go back, and so he couldn't be denied farm.
And he's going to come back into that lane now with a Chain Vest as well, so that'll negate a lot of the damage that could possibly come out of that misfortune. The AD carry is still maintaining that very even stance when it comes to CS. We see Misfortune go back home. BF Sword now added into that Doran's Blade, so a lot more power for Creative.
Absolutely, he's most likely just going to rush that Bloodthirster so he gets as big of a bullet time as possible. And it does seem like there's a bit of a lane swap being initiated by Alternate. They're done with these 2v1 shenanigans, even though it was completely even across the 2 of them. This point now, I feel like they're ready to lane Misfortune against Caitlyn, because the really early lane range advantage isn't as impactful now, since once you close the distance, you have more damage to throw around.
Now I'll put Vladimir back in his top lane, up against Wicked, so we'll see how Kerp handles that whole scenario. He's got an Anto and Boots for that Doran shield start for him. And we see the first blue buffs of the game being given over towards those mid laners as well.
Yeah, and I actually missed it here. The reason they initiated a lane swap to send Vladimir to Wicked is because of the Chain Vest. So Wicked was heavily itemizing against the AD carry, so that's the reason Alternate swapped it, because this Miss Fortune Caitlyn lane is actually not entirely in their favor.
So Snoopy is now waiting in there as well. No ward control of that bottom brush for Alternate, and that could be very dangerous here coming in. Both in that bottom lane do have flash available, but burning one of those will probably set them up for something a little bit later on as Krepo gets in range. That will force Alternate to back off. Don't want to risk that whole combo coming out from him. Snoopy remains there. He's very, very patient right now on this bottom lane.
Yeah, he knows how to be very patient with that. They get the hook, but I don't see if Snoopy can make it in time.
Well, it's a flash away. Krepo actually flashed it from that one. There's a teleport! There's the Unstoppable Force under the tower, and Snoopy gonna pick up first blood here for EG. He's taking a lot of damage from the turret himself, but quick reactions from EG will get the first blood. And now Froggen on towards Kerp here in the top lane. Kerp not gonna be so safe from this one. Froggen actually has his ultimate available now, and use it maybe a little bit too late there to sew that kill up.
Yeah, he had the last dash available, and Ferelnor now trying to answer as well.
Crescendo coming down, there is Diana diving in on towards Yellow Pete. He's not going to escape this one. Ferelnor pays one back for Alternate, but Kerp in his top lane. Froggen's still there, but Froggen goes down. Arenea's presence too much for him, baited in perfectly.
You can be as patient as you want 8 minutes in, and then the game just decides to explode on itself. That all happened because of the 4-man dive that EG kicked in. It allowed Alternate a bunch of other options about where to go. So the dive itself was well executed by EG, but sticking around, and then Froggen also trying to double up the play with a solo play, knowing he had no teammates anywhere near, allowed for some good counterplays there as Alternate rotated properly, top and bottom, top with the jungler, bottom with mid lane, and EG couldn't counter-rotate because they already showed their hand early. That was a good play by Alternate.
Well, Wicked did stick around now in this bottom lane, and they've sent Krepo and Yellow Pete up towards this mid lane, so really rotating these lanes around here are Evil Geniuses. We've got a blue buff here that's finally going to get given over towards Froggen. It's going to help him out a lot, but he, again, has now fallen behind that of Ferelnor, so Ferelnor's CS early on was stronger. Then we saw Froggen come right back in that one after Ferelnor went back to buy first, but Ferelnor has stepped it right back up.
Yeah, and Ferelnor's kind of had Froggen's number all year here. We talked about how he had the best stats against EG and how Froggen had his worst stats against Alternate. Diana is a champion who can fight with Ahri and definitely create some roaming trades as well. If Ahri decides to go, Diana can go just as well. And the first set of roams went to Ferelnor.
So here we go then, up to level 7 is now Snoopy, and this is where this dragon becomes a whole lot easier for Evil Geniuses. They're going to take that one completely uncontested, but they may lose out on this top lane as a reply from Alternate.
Yeah, that's mainly a trade. The thing you do with Nasus is you use your ultimate, kill Dragon. The thing you do with Split Push Vladimir, you don't go to that fight. You just take the turret. So nothing big happening there other than the team's getting a little richer.
Richer, indeed. Let's see what that brings them when they come back into this lane. Minion's going to be left here to finish off that turret by the Vladimir. And that will be the first turret of the game going over towards Alternate. If you look down the gold, that leaves them 700 gold up in the lead.
And it's, aside from that really quick burst of action we saw, this has been a very EG-paced game. Alternate, and especially Areneia, likes to play far more chaotic.
Watch Crescendo, bullet time and water combo coming out. Jerry actually goes low from this one. We are going to see Ace in the hole blocked by Creatine, and that's always the danger of this Sona. Jerry was up at level 7, flash Crescendo, and EG were just not ready for that one.
They were kind of lulled to sleep at that point because they'd just been sitting back, and it was actually EG who had taken the first action in this lane. Really crisp play there, Creatine making sure he just got his full bullet time off. No chance of Krepo getting out of it. And even if EG had Snoopy or someone waiting for the turn, Areneia was on his way. So it was getting the jump on them and also a safe flash Crescendo to use for Alternate.
Really nicely executed. That gives that bloodthirst over to Creatine now. On the other side, we can see that Yellow BF sword, long sword in there as well. We'll see where he decides to go. And Creatine will go in the boots here at the start, which he can do with that Misfortune Struck passive.
It's a big jump right now for Creatine in power over Yellow Pete. Yellow Pete went for Berserker Grease because that's generally what Caitlyn does, but it means they're vulnerable if they get locked down to what Misfortune can give them with that Bloodthirst. It's getting stacked up pretty well now, actually. He's got it at 7 attack damage, so he's still going for it.
Let's have a look at some of the other items here, because there's big ones across the board have been picked up, specifically for Forellenlord in that mid lane for Alternate. Got his Abyssal Scepter in there.
Yeah, it's strange to think that even though it's only a 900 gold lead, they have a much bigger lead in items. Froggen has 1700 gold yet to shop with while he's roaming, whereas Wickard's sitting on 1400. So if there's some kind of fight, even though it's 4v5 or 4v4, Alternate would have a bit of a chance because they've shopped for more of their gold so far.
Well, we are going to see a teleport coming in here from Wicked. They're going to try and catch on towards Alternate. Snoopy moving in there. Aranea just waiting off by the wall. He can just jump straight over from that one. And EG have zoned them out here. Obviously, they did take down that outer turret. They might try with a 5-man team to make a play on the inner as well.
And EG's made a huge investment sending 5 people here this early. It's allowing Vladimir to farm up quite a bit. So EG might need to be a little greedy in what they try to accomplish here, which could leave the door open for Forellenlord to find a fight.
Now we can see him off at the side. He was just waiting for that opportunity to jump in on top of Evil Geniuses. And Alternate, with that 4-man defense, have managed to force EG away. And as you said, that's given 2-3 waves of complete free farm over towards Kerp in that top lane. He's pushed it right up to that inner turret now as well.
And even though there was such an extended 1v2 phase for Kerp, I feel like he's gonna find his way back into this game, as just because of the way EG's playing. Wicked's very, not tempted, but very free to use his teleport wherever he wants, meaning he's not gonna be next to Kerp. And Froggen seems to want to rotate with the rest of the team as well. It's actually EG trying to put on a little bit of early pressure here, and it's allowing Kerp time to get back in the game.
Just saw a flash hook there from Krepo, which unfortunately ended him hooking a minion coming into that one. So
he never saw it coming.
Not the best hook that we've ever seen. Flash hook combo from Krepo. That means his flash is now down for whatever may be coming up here in these next couple of minutes. Alternate actually sending what seems to be at least 2 men up towards this top lane. Maybe have a go on Wicked, but he's got a very defensive ward down there in River, so he'll spot anything coming his way.
Yeah, Wicked does have to be a little careful, but it doesn't seem like Alternate cares about Wicked at this point. They're more about catching on to the squishy targets, and I think they're going to try to ignore Wicked in a lot of these games. Plus, Kerp can handle him right now.
So here we go in mid lane. Snoopy actually going to get engaged on here. Forellenlord though, there's a crescendo coming down. Can Forellenlord walk away from this one? Will he take kills with him? Yes, he does. Gets himself one. We'll see Krepo actually pick up the kill back onto Forellenlord. That could have really done with going over to Froggen.
Yeah, that's not the best scenario there for EG. They're now getting a little bit collapsed down by Aranea, and that was a 2v3 that Alternate pulled around there. So Forellenlord was showing how strong he actually is right now.
Great stuff, and that'll put Forellenlord up to 2-1-0. Taking all that. Here's that fight again.
Yeah, you can really just see, despite the weather, despite Froggen going in, Froggen never got a good DFG combo off on Forellenlord because he was actually dashing into the fights to begin with before he got locked down by the crescendo, and it gave Forellenlord enough time to finish off Krepo. Or was it Krepo? Yeah, I think so. Or Pete.
So, 4-2 for Alternate here. 16 minutes in, the gold very, very close. 400 is the only difference. We've got a Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. Froggen going to have his blue buff ready for that one. We'll see what plays they make.
This Dragon fight could be extremely interesting. I mean, Wicked doesn't have teleport, but he's trying to at least keep tabs of Kerp a little bit. And EG is the team that wants the fight right now, I feel like, but they'll have to deal with Forellenlord in this one. If Froggen gets on and kills Kwiaton before the fight starts, or even Sona, I feel like that would be a win for EG, and it's a fight they definitely want to take.
Well, Dragon coming up in 5. EG have moved a lot towards this mid lane, pushing that lane right back against Alternate, as we saw Forellenlord and Aranea pushing it up towards the EG turret. Wicked has walked on down from that top lane as well, and that will give them, at least for now, positional advantage to go down for Dragon. We'll see if Alternate come down, maybe even try and reply with a turret take here.
Yeah, so far in this game, Alternate's kind of playing at EG's pace, and now they're opting into the Dragon fight as well, instead of trying to split push with their split push Vladimir. They're putting themselves in a dangerous situation here, and they're challenging EG for this Dragon.
That ping ward gonna get put down inside of the Death Rush, and that's gonna stop me going in. But Aranea be caught out by the trap and lost half of his health from that one. Hook from Krepo not quite landing, and a face-off begins here as the Dragon started.
And they're just rushing it right now. They're daring Alternate to come in despite having a half-health jungler. He does have his let's revive up though, so here they go.
Here we go, Kerp taking a lot of damage. He is going to go down in the middle of that one with the pull, but Jerry falling low. There's a crescendo. They're all super low in this fight. RNA gets his passive pop, but Snoopy will die to Creatine. An alternate have managed to hold EG off of the Dragon while taking 2 kills. They're all very low here themselves, and Froggen may have an opportunity. Yellow P is full HP as well. Kerp taking a lot. Built over to the back. Will kill off Jerry, but alternate get the 2 for 1 and take the Dragon.
That was a clutch fight by Alternate. Despite not having RNA up in full health, they still managed to come out ahead and get the Dragon. Let's take a look at how it happened. The bullet time hit most of EG, and that's really what swung the fight to begin with. And then since Wicked didn't get through the AD carry, instead used his ultimate effectively point blank, it just didn't shut down Creatine and his ability to dish out the damage.
And once again, we saw Kerp pretty much baiting them there, you know, run straight in, okay, give me all your damage, then he pulls up to stay alive from that, and that bullet time then all the more spectacular. So 6-3 in kills, a good 1,200 gold lead now for Alternate, slowly but surely building up a nice lead for themselves. And, you know, a couple of kills here, he carried a couple of kills for Diana in the mid. It leaves both Aatrox and Vladimir with a killer piece as well. That's a great kill spread on their side.
And the game is still extremely close, and it's always nice, as you said, to have 6 kills and then your support has 5 assists. It's just perfect. You think of the way all the kills are distributed. Kerp going heavily defensive, by the way, not even finishing that Spectre break item before making a Spectre's cowl. Alternate is looking up, and since they got that wombo in the fight down at Dragon, I don't know how many more times they're going to be able to do that. It's still a very close game.
So we've seen Insomnia's Hourglass work up here for Frello. Got his Seeker's Arm Guard in there for that. Needlessly large rod was picked up by Froggen. Actually, he's going to be chased here by RNA, but is it going to be a bait? He flashes away as the teleport pretty much wasted there for Wicked.
Yeah, it's wasted in the sense that he at least got the flash out of RNA, and if we check the cooldowns of the 2 spells, teleport's 260 seconds away versus about 40 more seconds for RNA. Not exactly the trade you want, because Wicked needs his teleport to create fights, whereas RNA already has a bunch of moves to jump over walls, and I'd actually say RNA comes out on top for that.
So mid lane was the next target there for EG. 4 men in that position whilst Froggen pushes his bottom lane out. Krepo got himself an Oracle on board now to try and gain some of this vision control. Doesn't quite get that pink ward there. That's always an annoyance, I think, for a support. It's like, yeah, pink ward, and it just timed out. Sad times for him. But red buff being given over towards Yellow P, who now bloodthirst the pickaxe that he's got. Compare that over. Pretty much identical. In fact, it is very
one guy has a health potion,
yeah.
So that's a huge difference between the board. They seem to both be going for the Bloodthirster Last Whisper build. It's actually, in my opinion, the better build for MF than it is for Caitlyn, since MF is so heavily reliant on the ultimate at the end of the day. So Yellow P, when he hits that threshold, is still going to be a little bit behind Creatine, and still he starts getting some of his attack speed out of it. But it's still a build we've seen many Caitlyn's go, just because Yellow P is highly reliant on his skills as well.
So once again, Froggen moving off to the outer lanes, this time around to the top lane, while the 4 teammates start to push up middle. But Alternate pretty much just turning that one straight around, coming right back at them with a bit of pressure, and that will force this lane back to over that halfway mark. Relnod pretty much taking the leaf out of Froggen's book here, and he's pushing down this bottom side.
Surprisingly, even though Kerp has the summoner spells and builds to split push, Frelmord is the one split pushing. Arne actually had a nice jump out of a Krepo hook there at the end. But Frelmord's doing this because he, right now, is strong enough to take on anyone. So he is a better split pusher at this juncture than Vladimir. But what that does when Frelmord isn't with the team is it hamstrings Ultimate's initiation, which kind of plays back into EG's hands in the sense that EG wants a long game.
Right now, Wicked's teleport not available, of course, after that use down towards the Tribush. So that means that if they did get into a fight right now, it'd be a 4 versus 4 at the most. Seems like Diana won't be able to move across quick enough. But right now, Froggen is coming up there as well. So again, 4-man EG trying to put down damage on towards this outer middle turret there as RNA getting caught by the charm, has to jump away and almost paying a price.
And Frelmord tries to loom ominously in the side. That's why he's spending so many wards almost beyond the turret into the alternate jungle. EG is forcing the issue right here, and alternate just doesn't have the people to correctly defend this turret.
that turret may just go down. Charm landed onto Frelnlord there at the back. Damage is there enough. And EG are going to take turret 4 of this first match. And now 4-2 up in turrets. But the gold is still on a knife edge here. This is like one big fight, probably around the next dragon that's probably going to decide who starts to pull ahead.
This game could be very swingy on fights. Whenever you have this much farming and this few kills, especially with all the chase potential that Alternate has, the game could swing very, very quickly. And RNA has actually spent a huge amount of time in this game farming. 110 minion kills on Aatrox right now, and he didn't actually have that Golem, so he started the game with a couple Thorns Blades and Boots Mobility. So it's a little strange in the sense that he started with a build designed to fight people and then mainly farmed with it. I still want to see if he's strong enough to make an impact in these later games.
I just seen another charm landing onto him there from Froggen, who's really starting to sting. So that DFG in there for him means that pretty much everyone has to be careful of Froggen at this stage. He's constantly been laying down those pressure onto the other side. You see both AD carries now have that last whisper added into their Bloodthirsters as well.
Yep, they're getting closer to their builds. You can see Yellow Pete's going for a Zeal. I wouldn't be too surprised if Kriyotan went for a Black Cleaver. He doesn't need to because he doesn't need to shred for any other physical damage dealers on his team outside of the jungler Arnea, since they're double AP. But it'll tell us if he's going for an auto attack MF or just a straight up caster.
Well, Wicked right now is doing a split push job for EG. He's got that teleport now off cooldown, but this is going to allow Alternate, at least for now, to go in there. And EG are going to actually push the top lane as a reply.
And EG's made it clear this game, they care about turrets more than anything else. That's why they're up 4-2. Now going to be 5-2 because Alternate's actually stuck Aranea behind to get the dragon back. But this is a lot of map control that EG's accomplished from those trades.
And they know that Alternate recalled on that one. They saw Diana and what have you coming in towards this top lane to defend him. Now that's going to give them a bit of position to maybe work on this mid lane. In the end though, it is Jerry and Kriyotan coming around fast enough to wipe out the wave. Alternate did pick up the second dragon of the game with that one. And again, look at the gold. That trade coming off is all well and good, but EG has still got more turrets to take down, and that dragon's not going to come in. There's not going to be as many dragons as there will be turrets if we look at it that way.
Yeah, and this game is getting more and more cautious. I also feel like some of these moves are influenced by the fact that they're not necessarily wanting to fight each other straight up. But now with EG just taking more and more territory, eventually Ultimate is going to have to go in. Otherwise, they're going to give up eventually their base.
Starving them off their jungle right now. We see a couple of pink wards down on the top one, on the bottom side by the blue as well. And as they head away from that one, Krepo going to recall here, so maybe we'll pick himself up another Oracle. Of course, his last one did run full duration, so will come in as number 2 here. Meanwhile, Alternate pushing down in that bottom lane, but it's mid lane, acing the hole, plus Froggen trying to get in onto Aranea, and look at this, Alternate have all gone down towards the bottom, and they've given up a inner turret in that mid lane, just positioning there.
Yeah, EG is just playing the mini-map game right now and having more people than Alternate in the spots where they want to kill turrets. Frelnlord still pushing the bottom lane, which tells me EG either has to go deal with him, which they can't necessarily do with one person, or just full-on dive, and they're pulling back.
Pulling back from this one, and Alternate pushing down the lane as well will probably force them to walk back towards safety as Frelnlord heads up towards the race. EG have come completely down that middle line with the lane with the entire team right now, and they're going to go straight back behind their own turret. So Frelnlord putting on good pressure and probably stopping EG in their tracks with that.
And one thing we have to keep in mind, since the gold is completely even, is the difference in opinion in jungler builds. There could be a fight at any second. I'll get at this point later.
Hook's missing there, Charm's being thrown out, and everyone's trying their best to get some kind of initiation here, some real strong start to a fight, but with both teams here, underneath turret is very dangerous. You know, the unstoppable force, the Charms, you can be locked under it very easily.
Any single one of those skill shots lands, or if Alternate decides to commit all in, this game just becomes something. That's not the guy they want to get in on, though.
Hook and a Charm on towards Aranea, and still they decide, nope, he's not the one. We don't want to be fighting him. Got the Aegis in there. at this point as well. That was his last pickup, and now EG pushing up through the jungle. Alternate going for the blue buff now, and Froggen saying, I want that blue buff. Let's try and contest.
This is a tight enough space right now that Alternate might get a good combo off.
They've called into that for Toralds for Elmlord, but there's the ensemble force to the back. It's onto Clinton and Jerry. Jerry is going to go straight down. The bullet time comes in from the side, but Froggen going to be onto Jerry. Double kill for Froggen. Aranea is very low from this one, as Kerp is going to pull away from the ultimate out of Caitlyn, but Forellenlord actually got a double there without going down. He went super low. Snoopy manages to kill him off with a Spirit Fire. Aranea, he's the one going low. He now gets finished off. Double kill in the end. Kerp, the sole survivor there for Alternate.
And even though that fight was 4 for 2 for EG, it could have went even worse for Alternate because they got completely caught off. Kerp, really? Oh. I think he juked him. I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, they withered him.
Wither there.
No, they didn't.
No, he didn't. He got into the pool early enough there, and Snoopy just, damn you. I just picked the wrong bush to go and check. He was waiting by the red this entire time, but let's have a look at that one again.
Yeah, exactly. The reason this fight went well for EG is Alternate didn't wombo or combo any of their abilities right there, whereas Wicked got onto the AD carry E. Bullet Time essentially missed. For Elmlord, you actually saw he missed his E as well on EG, so EG used those walls very well to maneuver around, they made sure they never all got caught in the same space, which is why they came out so far ahead.
Snoopy chasing off, managing to finish off those couple of kills at the end as well. Always a bonus for him. Now up at 3-2-2, and we see after that fight a couple of items coming in for EG specifically. Snoopy finishing off that random in zone. We saw the Zhonya's for Froggen, plus another needlessly large rock.
Yeah, and here's that point I can make about the jungler's items now. It's a difference in opinion because Snoopy is completely foregoing the Aegis Locket of Iron Solari line, despite being up against double AP competition, and instead he's going for individual tankiness. So he's going for the Randuin's Spirit Visage combo, which is way better tanking for himself, but not as good for the team, which is what Aranea is doing. And that's because EG, as we saw in that last fight, wants to scatter around, and they aren't necessarily going to take benefit from the auras that Snoopy would be giving them, whereas Aranea wants to go in and combo the rest of his team's abilities with him, which is why he's went for the lock.
So, moving back into a bit more farming here, Evil Genius has got both Wicked and Froggen on the side lanes to push those out, and Alternate are going to have to reply to that here. We can see that Aranea has gone back, Diana going top, Vladimir going down to the bottom side there. Going to play a bit of a tug of war with the waves now.
And EG's been winning this tug of war throughout the whole game. That's why they're up 6 turrets to 3, and that's why they were able to kind of get Alternate into an uncomfortable spot, because I feel like that whole fight developed where EG came out with a 4 for 2. Because of how frustrated Alternate was getting losing outer turrets, they just said, all right, we're going to be the ones pushed up straight into you, even though Alternate had no clean way of initiating under a turret without losing a fight terribly. So when they pulled back into the blue buff area, it just allowed EG kind of a sneaky route of getting to the targets they wanted to.
Now with Dragon coming up and no real easy tower to take down for Alternate to even out that they'd lose obviously from giving up a Dragon. It means that they either have to let it go completely if they don't want to fight, or put a full-on fight there by the Dragon, and that's risky. We saw what happened last time around.
Yeah, on one hand, EG won the last fight, but if we think back to the last Dragon fight, it was in the hands of Alternate, and by no means did that last EG fight turn the tides of the game. Wicked's getting substantially farther ahead, and it does seem like the amount of turrets that Alternate is down is dissuading them from wanting to check in towards the Dragon, because they've lost so much ground just giving up those 6 turrets.
And the Dragon does get taken down there, so that leaves Evil Geniuses now a couple of 1,000 gold ahead, which is by no means a massive amount, but look at this. Alternate actually setting up a bit of a trap to see if EG will walk into it.
They kind of went a little early there.
Yeah, Froggen was actually headed up that way as well.
Yeah.
A little unfortunate for Alternate on the timing.
Aranea was a little hyped up, I feel like. It's like, here we go. Don't want to win too long.
Quite work out. So, what are EG going to go for next? And I think they're going to keep doing what they've been doing because, well, why fix something that's not broken for them? They've opened up the middle and the top lane by taking down those inner turrets. Bottom lane still has one standing, which would then obviously make it an obvious choice for EG, but Alternate need to be careful here because we've seen that EG, in terms of positioning, have outsmarted them a couple of times already.
And the one thing Alternate needs to kind of make sure of is that Pharrell Lord's in the right place, because he is definitely the one providing the most threat and damage. Everyone else is kind of building around him for it. Kerp actually didn't go for the split push Vladimir build. Instead, he opted for a Will of the Ancients, which is going to help out everyone else on Alternate, but it actually diminishes his split push threat, which is why they're using Pharrell Lord as the split pusher. And he needs to make a play if he's going to be split pushing like that, because Alternate's team can't initiate cleanly without him.
Would be a bit of a never-ending fight if you went up against Froggen here as well. Both of them having those Zhonya's Hourglass available. And a lot of skill shots it would come down to as well. Yeah, there's not many people who are more skilled than these two in the mid lane, that's for sure. Right now, though, Wicked actually teleporting in there onto the top side of the Alternate blue buff. There was a ward right there, so they know exactly that Wicked has just used that teleport and where he is on the map.
Yeah, that's a little curious by Wicked, but once again, Kerp is... This is kind of a little weird what Wellington is trying to do. They're effectively trying to do a double split push with both of their solo laners right now. Yet Pharrell Lord's really the only one who's threatening at this point, since Kerp has went for the more team-oriented build. It's basically just stalling out the game whenever they try to just push up the waves, because EG's not going to want to push until they have all of the lanes going together.
We know that if any team can win a long game, that is Evil Genius. Let's talk a little bit more again about the items, because we've seen that develop a little bit more now. So LOP getting some attack speed in there, picking up that Phantom Dancer as his last one. A second BF sword actually coming around for Creatine on that Misfortune.
So that's kind of what we thought was going to happen, where Yellow Pete goes more auto attack focused and Creatine goes more straight up for his skills. He's now getting a little bit defensive as well with that Spectre's Cowl that he just picked up, because he doesn't want Froggen one-shotting him. Froggen's got an absurd amount of ability power thus far and has farmed amazingly. 566 AP, can just delete someone from the map, and they're now forcing the Baron. So they transition from the Dragon Force game to the Baron Force game casually.
And obviously with Alternate's presence there, EG not going to hold on to that one for too long. Don't want to take too much damage from the Baron if the fight is about to kick off. Red buff going to go to Creatine to set them up for this next one. But what is the move from EG? Again, they'll clear out the wards. The Baron face the object for both teams. There's a charm going to land up to Pharrell Lord. This is surely the fight that we were waiting for as the Zhonya's goes in. Pharrell Lord hopping away from that one as the Crescendo comes across the back as well. Wicked now having to back away. Froggen on less than half HP and Wicked falling slowly, but surely they picked off Froggen as well. And all of a sudden it's a 2-for-0, and that could be more as Creatine chases down towards Yellow Pete. Kerp is coming in from the side as well. He has to flash from that one, and Kerp not quite able to get down, but that gives the chance now for them to go over and start the Baron of their own. This is a 5 versus 3 with flashing health bars for EG.
And EG is going to try to harass this one, although it's incredibly dangerous.
And Creatine, they're going head-to-head with Yellow Pete. Baron is down to half HP as well. This is scary times for both teams as EG start to work in there. Wicked going very low. Will go down in the end to Creatine. Snoopy trying to get in from the side, but he gets finished off there. And the Baron will be taken by Alternate. And that was a massive sweep.
Sometimes EG has to cut their losses and run, because Alternate had that Baron through. Let's watch how the fight developed. EG baited themselves in by going on a promo, because look how they lined up for Relinor, Kerp's Hemo Plague, and also the brief but effective bullet time from Creatine. And then EG just had to scatter, because they also have to realize they're fighting against multiple aura items that Alternate's picked up. Will of the Ancients on Kerp, as well as the Locket of the Iron Solari, is giving Alternate a gold advantage in fights if they're grouped, but not if they're solo.
So what will they do here with this Baron buff? Obviously they are 3 turrets behind Evil Geniuses right now. And this is a great opportunity for them to start leveling that up somewhat. 3,000 gold, let's call it right now, in the lead after that big amount of kills, plus the Baron pickup as well. But for me, they're not going to be feeling as far ahead as they, well, are they really that far ahead if you think about it that way when you look at the items?
Not yet, because they recognize they're down in turrets, and they recognize they've been getting bullied around a little bit or just outsmarted on the map. So the duration of this Baron buff is where Alternate needs and wants to make their play.
So Pharrell getting with it, but not really losing too much with that shield coming in with the heals as well from Jerry off to the side. And they're going to try for this inner middle turret now with this next wave of minions coming in. There are going to be 5 men from both teams in that area, but quite simply, they're able to bully their way through with Aranea tanking up the turret. There's a charm on towards Forellenlord, but again, they're forced off.
So if Alternate wants to, they can sweep around the outside and get tied 6 turrets to 6. But if they feel like they see an opportunity, they're gonna be willing to dive. Forellenlord and Aranea can go in together and blow them up. That's substantially a more dangerous strategy though. And with the way they're sticking around, plus their other waves not being shoved, they might be considering this.
Well, let's see. All 5 men still there. Ultimates now coming on cooldown. There's the jump in from Aranea, and the bullet time coming from the back as well. Vlad ulti goes down. Snoopy's a dead man. That's a double kill for Creatine, and they can take this turret in the inhibitor. What a setup from Alternate.
That was a risk worth taking, and they executed beautifully. They got their combo on exactly who they wanted. Pete went down. There was no opposition from EG, and they get the inhibitor and possibly more.
Still sticking around for this. Are they going to go for more? I'd imagine that these side lanes now, I mean, they can tank up the turrets at this point of things as well. They've got the damage. Let's have a look at that fire again.
Yeah, it was literally just Aranea and Forellenlord going in together with everything else lining up. They didn't even need the crescendo. That crescendo didn't hit anything necessarily except Snoopy. That's how much comboing Alternate has. And it gives them the freedom to dive like that if EG's grouped up on the turret.
This is what we always say with combos like this, that if you hit everything, they are so spectacular and effective. But if one part of that combo goes wrong, it can mean that you lose fights. But not taking it away from Alternate at this stage, they've landed them the last couple of times really, really well. That one in particular, absolute stunning play coming out of Alternate to leave them now 6,500 gold in the lead, up double the amount of kills here to EG. But let's go back to that old, maybe boring at some point that Evil Geniuses, when it comes to stalling out games, farming things up and holding on to turrets, they're one of the best out there.
Generally, when EG has had their legendary turret holds, and their legendary pauses, their turret holds, though, have been mainly because they keep their inhibitor turrets up as long as possible. They didn't really keep their inhibitor turret up that long this time, because they got completely dove on it, and I feel like their shell has actually been broken now, so EG can no longer be in that comfortable stall mode. They're actually forced into playmaking mode right now, because one other small or even just strong initiate by Alternate can completely shut them down and end the game.
So it seems like Pete here is the one that's having a couple of issues. And honestly, guys, what would it be for an EG game without a pause?
They're taking it to late game right now. They're making sure, you may not think it. No, I think he's just going to have to quickly restart his client, and he will be back in the game. But this has been a close one. Alternate's played very well.
Being close throughout the entire game, which is, let's be honest, we've expected that. I think all of these playoff games should be close in a certain respect. Obviously, some teams will be favored coming up against others, but this is exactly what we were expecting coming out of this game, that neither team were going to make too many risky plays, that it'll probably be close throughout, and that maybe 1 or 2 big team fights will probably decide every single game in these best of 3s, and that's exactly what this is delivering.
And so far in this game, I mean, it actually started at an EG pace. We're 39 minutes in now, which is what seems like an EG time. But the problem has been Alternate made the move that worked when it counted. EG tried almost a little too hard to initiate fights around the Baron pit, and I think most of this swung actually when Froggen landed that, kind of put themselves in, because we got to recognize 7 kills to 14. EG is completely trapped in their base, and Alternate still has some Baron buff time left.
So let's see then. What are Alternate going to do with that remaining time left on the Baron buff here? Right now it looks like bottom lane and that inner turret is the target.
And this is what Alternate could have done before they decided to make the aggressive great play and go for the inhibitor. They may just look to make yet another dive, because this Baron just ran out, but they might go anyway.
Wow, Kerp actually getting completely destroyed in terms of health there. It was the charm that set that one up. Aranea standing on the trap, and Evil Geniuses are pushing out. They want to go for this one. Froggen going to ulti, charms in onto Forellenlord. There's Unstoppable Force, and Jerry goes down. Bullet time comes in the back. Forellenlord is using Sonya's, and Kerp will fall. He's right at the front line. Froggen uses Sonya's, but he's going to get away with it. Somehow they hold that one through. Aranea losing his bloodwell. He's going to be a big target here right now at the back, but they want the AD carry. They want Creatine out of this one. Yellow Pete joins back in. Creatine flashes over to get that kill, and now Creatine might be able to finish off Wicked as well. But Froggen, he's coming back out of the base with full HP. He will finish
2, and that was an example of Alternate overstaying their welcome, and then EG's ability to pull the trigger. Check this out. Froggen gets it, but it's mainly the Wicked ultimate combo with Thresh. No Crescendo came up, so as you're saying, that one breaking point of their combo, Crescendo didn't lock up, Bullet Time didn't land, and then Alternate decided to overdive and overstay their welcome. Only the amazing play of Kriyachan at the end of this salvaged any kills for Alternate.
So well there with that one. Actually flashed straight back in there, using barrier in the end, but as he said, the fact that Froggen actually got out of that and went back into the base, healed up completely, and then was able to get back into the fight to help finish off.
So another huge momentum changer there for Evil Geniuses, but you know, these things happen from time to time. What's gonna happen after the next pause right now?
I don't know. Apparently pause is a catalyst for massive, incredible fights here. And
yeah, well, we need some time to break down exactly what happened in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, apparently it's Pete's PC again that's causing some problems, which didn't seem to affect him too much in that last fight. He actually did really well in it.
He did well until he kind of ran right into a misfortune. Blew his head off at the end. It seemed like he was performing in the fight. He could press his buttons, at least. Yeah. But I think it was some type of graphics issue, so he's just having some inconsistencies in what he's seeing right now. Still gotta say though, that's the play that EG has to make to stay or get back in this game. Because as we said, like sure they're great at stalling, but once you lose that inhibitor, they're forced to do things, which is one of the big reasons that when Alternate was so far pushed up, as the Baron buff wore off, EG just decided to go.
So, seems like Pete is ready to go once again in this one, so he's going to be just getting my cable sorted, guys, no worries. But we're going to be getting back into this game here in just a second, as Pete's PC seems to be now fixed. So here we go.
Yep. I was getting over the cable, what must have looked like on camera. I had to help you out with the cable.
We're all friends here, we help each other out with our cables when they get twisted. So, let's see what the next minutes bring, because honestly after that now I'm not sure how to really call what's going to be coming up. Obviously the Baron buff is, well, it's run out now because they all got killed, but that Baron buff's going to be coming up here relatively soon. EG are not going to want to give that away. Alternate going to want that for a second time. That could be a really big point coming up.
Yeah, I feel like EG managed to neutralize the main advantage that Alternate had taken, and we're kind of back to square one yet again. 41 minutes into the game. I think most of the team's plans remain fairly similar, where Pharrell Lord is being that split push because EG doesn't really have someone who can straight up fight him, but then he's also the primary initiator for their team, so he's working overtime, and it puts a lot of stress on Alternate to react to what EG has done. At the same time though, Alternate has come back so far in this game that EG might be hesitant to pull the trigger around the Baron buff again, because they've seen how strong Alternate's counter initiation is if Wicked or Froggen use their CC too early and end up falling off their own team.
So buffs being taken, you're trying to get as much power as they possibly can head up into this next few minutes of the game, and Baron is coming up here in about 10 seconds time, so positioning already being put into play. We can see that Snoopy has himself an Oracle right now, so they're going to be trying to clear out the vision that Alternate have just got down. Pharrell Lord here in the middle as well. It's like the entire Alternate team coming in. Wicked just using his tankiness to stick at the front there and to use himself as a wall.
And both these teams are moving like they want to fight. They wouldn't be getting themselves into damage range if both teams weren't looking for a good initiation opportunity. Even though Alternate has priority over the vision control at Baron right now, either one of these teams could start a fight.
Fox coming out, Charms being thrown in there, and that's what they're waiting for. One on the right target could get things going. Aranea actually dives in. They've caught onto Wicked here, and look at that, already losing a lot of his health. Takes the lantern away, but that is not what they wanted to stop. Aranea could be in trouble. He's jumping down. There's a bullet time as well, so we complimented Alternate earlier on in their combo of things, and that was almost the opposite.
Just out of sync right now. The hook landed right as Aranea was retreating from some aggressive posturing, and that just kind of made Kriyachan put up a defensive bullet time. And this is so tricky right now for EG. Both their side lanes are pushing, but they know they have a small window of a slightly better fight. I don't know what they're going to do here, because they need to get back and clear those waves, but the Baron is an opportunity.
Baron the opportunity, and Alternate will be rubbing their hands together at the thought of this one. Evil Geniuses have to save that bottom side. or the top side, as it technically is for them. Will that give Alternate this chance to jump in? It's Froggen that's actually gone back. The funny thing about this is that Wicked uses teleport to come back to middle. If that had been saved, he could have been the one to clear out there and still be able to get back into the fight. It looks like they're going to give that tower up.
Yet no one is clearing those giant creep waves, even though Froggen was right next to it, but he didn't want to give up the fact that he was gone. EG is almost on a timer right now as the fight might begin.
Hook lands on towards Aranea. What are they going to do with this one? Aranea going super low right at the start of that one, but EG decided not to follow up on things, and the longer that they wait here, the more damage to that turret is going to be coming down. We can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there that it is incredibly low right now, and EG finally seems like they want to move away. Alternate are going to make a play on it.
2/3 of that turret are already gone, but by Alternate positioning themselves here with RNA low, it's daring EG to fight them.
And are they going to take the dare, or are they just going to sit back? Alternate now. They're going to get the turret. This turret is theirs. There's no doubt about that. EG can't go to Baron. They have to come back to defend their base. It looks like this inhibitor is going to go down. And Alternate, where are they going to go from here? The mid inhibitor is open as well. Forellenlord dives in there. He's got that GA. He's already used his Zhonya's and actually jumps away from that. There's the unstoppable force coming in crescendo onto the back line. As the bullet time is going to get interrupted as well. Big fight going down though, as Kurt will finish off Wicked. Forellenlord goes low. He's been hit at the back, but they managed to take down Krepo without him dying. And now Snoopy's having to back away. Kurt uses Zhonya's. Snoopy's a dead man here, but Froggen has come back in, managed to pop Arenea's passive. Acing the hole comes through, and in the end, it's a 3-0 for Alternate.
What a call by Alternate right there. They forced a fight while taking an inhibitor and then fought with their backs to EG's Nexus and won. Even though they didn't have perfect comboing that fight, they had enough strength and enough skill to make themselves through that one. That was an amazing call, and this swings the game entirely back in the favor of Alternate.
Right now they're headed up towards that Baron. No surprises there. Froggen is, along with Yellow Pete, the only two men alive, of course, so they're the only two that can really do anything to stop this second Baron of the game going over towards Alternate. Jerry gonna get caught out with the charm. He just about gets back in towards Baron Pit, but they've got to either focus Baron or come off, and they do focus Baron down. That is the second Baron going their way. Yellow Pete destroyed by Forellenlord in the end, and Alternate simply back off. Froggen can't push through.
Yeah, you think Alternate's doing a bit of damage right now, or especially Forellenlord, as he just blew up Yellow Pete, despite him having the magic resist from that Quicksilver Sash. Things just have not worked out for EG recently. I mean, Alternate's made so many bold plays. Check out this fight just one more time. It was a very scattered affair. You can see Alternate is just kind of playing off on multiple sides. Surprisingly, Wicked couldn't combo too well, and just like, even though Snoopy was in good position, sitting everywhere with Nasus, Alternate just had more chase potential at the end of the day, and ultimately had more farm going into that fight as well.
We'll see. A brilliant Zhonya's from Curve kept him alive there right to the very end, and as you said, the combo not really landing from Alternate like we saw under the turret earlier on, but they still managed to go through, and EG, I'm not sure if they really went about that brilliantly as well. Jerry's crescendo right onto the backside of things kept a couple of them completely out of that fight for long enough for Alternate to turn the tide. So, final turret of the base.
They're just going to go left up.
They're just going to go straight
right away.
They're going to go straight through this one. Yellow Pete has only just spawned back into the game. There is the jump on towards Krepo. Can they finish him off? He's hooked Kurt into this one, but is the Vladimir the one that you want in the middle of the team? Probably not. Inhibitor finished off here by Aranea, and there they go. Krepo going to fall low. Bullet time comes across. It's Creaton that actually picks up Krepo, and Alternate may win here.
They're just pushing as far as they want. They can just take these turrets, all three inhibitors down. EG trying desperately to fight them off, but they've lost everything.
There's a charm onto Forellenlord. He will use that Zhonya's again. He's back up. Doesn't have his GA though. That's the only thing that he doesn't really have available to him, as the turret's still being hammered away on. Nexus now completely open here for Alternate. Can they get through it though? Piltover Peacemaker comes in, but the Nexus is being focused. Less than half HP. Alternate gonna pick up the victory here in match number 1 of our best of 3.
And for Alternate, even though they had an 0-5 Super Week, they extend their season series lead over EG now. That makes them 4-1 against them, and something about what Alternate's doing this season is just beating up on EG. That was a close game, but anytime there was a really big play to be made, Alternate was making it.
See, the team's just going to leave the stage here and have talks about that one, because as you said, EG definitely didn't start badly for them. They had some very promising times in that, but those team fights were really the bane of their existence for a lot of them.
Yeah, one thing that ended up happening RNA had a little bit of extra farm, and I do have to credit, honestly, an item in Will of the Ancients. So many of those fights had alternate all getting taken low. And I feel like it was the healing they got, or the spellbound from that Woda that kind of kept them in there. It was a smart choice by Kerp, being able to get away with building an aura item for his laning phase, and still transitioning to being so heavily farmed later on in the game. Alternate just made the plays when it mattered, and they went in together.
Do you think there are any champions in there that have now warranted a ban? I mean, we saw RNA's Lee Sin being banned against him. He brought out the Aatrox here in the jungle, and honestly, it went really, really well for him.
Yeah. I think the Lee Sin is still the thing you ban against RNA. I think, if anything, they try to pick Aatrox a little sooner if they want to get their hands on it. The strangest thing about this is, like, EG, they played EG.
Yeah.
Whereas Alternate did things a little differently. They swapped it up and they had their answer for it. So that makes it really hard once again for EG to kind of adapt, because what do? They already banned out one of the alternate things, and they were so predictable in their own right. I'm not sure how they're going to go for it.
Had their entire comfort lineup, so to speak, from that one. So it's going to be tough for them, that's for sure. But it is a best of 3, so they still have the chance to come back. That'll be a little bit later, but for now, we're going to head over to Kobe and Quickshot to take a look at the key plays from that last one.
Thank you very much, Joe and Chad, and what a good game. I think that's one of the closest games I've seen on a stage this size in a very long time.
This was an exciting way to start off the playoffs here. I couldn't be happier with this game. It was so close at every stage of the game.
All right, let's not get carried away. Let's go back to the beginning. The first thing that came out that surprised me, EG, you heard them talk, Joe and Chad talking about, they got comfort picks. Alternate, they play champions that we wouldn't really associate with alternates, things that they haven't, trended towards over the course of the split. And initially I was a little concerned. Vlad, Aatrox, Diana, is like, okay, this is a little weird. But when they started layering their CC and they got that wombo combo together, it worked. What do you think of the comp?
Now, it was a very different comp, but it worked out really well because of the sort of unconventional crowd control that it brings. It has so many threats, and it has so many, slows or knockups or displacements. Even though they didn't have J-Re hitting crescendos in key team fights, they still had enough to control EG's movements. That's what the first clip is going to be about a dragon fight, where J-Re, several times in a row, he only crescendos Snoopy. He gets there late, he doesn't get off anybody else, but because RNA's got a knockup of his own, because Pharrell Lord has the Moonfall, he can suck people in, and because Creaton uses his bullet time as a giant zoning tool, they're able to get by without even hitting those crescendos.
So in terms of Alternate's team fights, they had great, presence and they worked well together, but the early game was all about EG. They just took complete control of the map.
They did a lot of very calculated choices where they would take turrets for other objectives. Alternate got a lot of dragons out of it, but EG got so much map control that they were able to make movements when Alternate didn't have vision, and they would just catch them off guard and gain more gold over and over, attaining a very large gold lead, global gold lead, that Alternate had to just wait out and have Kerp split pushing for that time until he got farmed up enough and got those aura items to basically support the rest of his team.
All right, well, let's actually take a look at the very first replay that we do have prepared for you. As we said, it is around the dragon. It's something that EG actually started.
Yeah, so EG went to start this one because they, rightfully so, feel like they're the dragon fighting team, but this is Alternate's team comp shining through here. It doesn't even go perfectly, but it doesn't matter. Kerp starts this one off, he goes in with Vladimir, and he's able to tank a lot of the control that EG have. He still gets off his blood pool. Let's roll this through very slowly, and we'll see how it unfolds. Froggen unloads everything on him. There's the pool. J-Re flashes in to get his crescendo, but it doesn't go off. Good ult by Wicked there, stops him, but leaves Creaton firing from the back line. There was the single man crescendo that only hit Snoopy. It was all about the AoE damage that Alternate are able to use in place of crowd control. The Hemo Plague and the Bullet Time are too scary for EG to get into that zone of the battlefield, so we actually had a lot of Yellow Pete's damage mitigated because he was running backwards to get out of the Bullet Time.
It was something we actually seen multiple times throughout the fight. The Yellow Pete wasn't able to stand there and lay the auto attacks down.
He's running for the hills.
We've got another replay prepared. This time it's a little closer towards the Baron fight. It actually started with EG catching members of Alternate out. So let's pull this replay up onto your screen.
One member, and it was Pharrell and Lord. He got chain CC'd very well here. It's a charm into a hook from Krepo, which seems like the perfect initiate for EG. But because he's able to get the Zhonya's off, again, we have Hemoplague and Bullet Time doing so much work for Alternate. Once again, note J-Ree's position right now. He's clearing out a ward up in red buff, so he doesn't get off a good crescendo. This Alternate comp could have been even more devastating if he was there at the start. Let's roll it through slow once again, and we'll see how EG catch Pharrell and Lord off. There's the charm into an amazing hook. And they take him down so low that they want to go for it. The Flay interrupting RNA's jump, by the way. They have to use Malphite to go in there and stop the Bullet Time. But the 4-man Hemoplague from Kerp zones everybody and gets all of them low at the same time. So much area of effect damage means that Creaton is able to come in the back and they grab 2 more kills off of that, roll that into a Baron, and they actually kill Wicked and Snoopy when they're trying to steal away that Baron.
And, you know, as the game progressed, we've seen that there was a couple of fights where EG did pick up some wins. Like down in the bottom lane, they managed to ace Alternate, only losing 2 while they'd lost their mid inhibitor. But it just seemed like it was a little too late. And once again, Yellowpete, he 90 caliber netted into Creatine, who just basically 2-shot it.
Well, that was unfortunate, but Froggen had some amazing plays in that bottom team fight. And this is why the game was so close. Him being able to initiate and get to the back line to Zhonya's, surviving that fight and then coming back with home guards, pulling out the ace for EG gave them some hope and gave, you know, maybe another 10, 15 minutes onto this game. But in the end, Alternate just had too much area effect damage and crowd control that they could land once J-Ree was finally with the team.
So just in closing, before we go to a break, let's talk a little bit. EG got their comfort picks. They played their game. I mean, the first 20 minutes was at their pace. Alternate were patient, waited for the moment to pounce, and they pounced. What do you do if you're EG when you've been beaten at your own game?
There were just a few times when Wicked would teleport and not get anything out of it. That's a very big cooldown, and it's one of the important parts of EG's setup here, was being able to have that map movement. Having a couple times where Wicked didn't get anything out of it, it allowed Kerp to get back in this game and split push. All the money being focused onto Kerp is what allowed him to build that Will of the Ancients that Jao was talking about, which effectively boosted his teammates' power. So it's like getting global gold, even though it was all on Kerp, and so he got to be a carry plus support the rest of his team.
Well, we'll see how it works out for them. As we mentioned, we do have to take a very short break. When we return, it is game 2 between Evil Geniuses and Alternate. And while Alternate won the first battle, the war is far from over. Plus, Team Alternate's manager, Johannes Sick, will be joining Shox to break down game 1. European LCS Regional Playoffs. We'll be right back. Stick around.
think every game in the best of 3 is important, but if you win the first game, you get motivated for the next game and the enemies get demotivated.
For a newer team, the first game in a best of 3 is absolutely like imperative, but for a more experienced team, they can still lose that first game and come back and take the second and third.
One game down here in the first quarterfinal, and I am joined by Alternate's manager, Johannes, who must be feeling great after that first map that you got. But tell us about going into this matchup, because last week you got here by the skin of your teeth. So what has been going down this week to make sure you're top notch here?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was our goal to play at Gamescom. It's so awesome here, and we were really motivated for it. So we trained a lot, and we especially did some theoretical stuff about changing the picks, lineups, something new, and yeah, I think it went out great so far.
Yeah, you say that about those picks, and I have to say, there's not any unconventional picks we saw in that game 1, but they're very different picks for Team Alternate. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, you always have to improve if you want to win against teams like EG. Standing still, playing the same lineups over and over again, it just means that you don't improve, and the opponent just tries to find a weak spot in your game, so you always have to change something.
But then tell us a summary from your point of view when you were watching this game. It was back and forth, but eventually EG almost came back in it, but did you ever feel that you're going to let it slip, or?
Yeah, for me the huge turnaround was on bot lane with the fight. EG just won that fight, but yeah, I mean, we had a great comp with Sonar and MF, and we were just afraid of Malphite ulti, because if it hits, then we get just stomped, and yeah, I think the player just were focused to prevent being catched by that ulti.
Well, as Quickshot said, the war is not over yet. You only have one game in the bag. You still need to win one. How confident are you that you guys have what it takes to bring it home?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now we have a win in our pocket so far, so I mean, we can't be more confident, but yeah, let's see. We know that it's going to be a hard battle.
Sure will be. It's going to be very exciting. Thank you very much, Johannes.